Own your temper, how Stoics master their reactions in silence, the silent explosion. You probably imagine anger as something loud, a shout, a slammed door, a breaking point, but the most dangerous kind of anger is quieter than that. It doesn't explode outward, it folds inward, it clenches the jaw, it stiffens the shoulders, it stares at the floor in silence while the storm brews just beneath the skin, and no one sees it coming, not even you. That's the real temper we're here to talk about. The one that doesn't always make a scene, but always leaves a scar. Not outside, inside. It's the kind that rewrites your relationships in subtle ways, that makes you withdraw from people you love, that has you replaying a conversation for days just to prove to yourself that you were right. Or worse, that you were wrong and still couldn't stop yourself. We live in a world where people think silence is calm, but the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" And he wasn't talking about shouting. He was talking about what happens after the moment passes, when you realize that, once again, you gave your peace away without even noticing. The truth is, most of us don't blow up. We shut down. We go silent. But it's not the peaceful kind of silence. It's the kind that poisons your thoughts and locks you inside your own head. That's the silent explosion, the hidden temper, the invisible war that plays out between who you are and how you wish you had responded. And you're not alone. Everyone has felt this, that inner burning, that sharp, almost electric charge running through your chest and arms when someone pushes the wrong button. That moment where you know you're about to say something that will cut deep, and a smaller voice inside whispers, "Don't. Not this time." But the words still slip out. Or the silence that follows becomes its own form of punishment, a weapon disguised as control. The Stoics never taught us to suppress emotions. That's a misunderstanding. They taught us to face them, to see them clearly, before they become masters over our actions. That's why this video isn't about staying calm. It's about taking back the throne inside your own mind, not with denial, not with fake smiles, but with awareness, with reflection, with the kind of stillness that isn't passive but powerful. Because here's the hard truth, no one else makes you angry. The trigger may come from the outside, but the flame, that's already inside you, and that's why silence is not enough. You can sit quietly and still be a prisoner to rage. You can say nothing and still be torn apart inside. Silence without clarity is just a muffled scream. So let's go deeper. Let's understand why you react the way you do. Let's uncover the hidden beliefs that turn small slights into emotional wars. Let's question the moments when your pride dressed up as justice, when your fear posed as boundaries, when your insecurity wore the mask of dignity. And then let's do something different. Let's slow down time. Let's take one step back from the reaction. Let's choose not to be puppets of our emotions. Because the truth is, your temper is not part of your identity. It's a habit. One that can be observed, questioned, dismantled, and replaced. Not overnight, but over time. Through practice, through presence, through the wisdom of those who've walked this path before. Imagine this. You're in the same situation that used to unravel you. But now something's changed. You feel the anger rise, but instead of taking control, it passes through you like a wave. You don't fight it, you don't feed it, you just watch. And in that space, something opens. Not weakness. Not coldness, but clarity. The kind of clarity that says, I could respond, but I choose not to. That's not repression, that's mastery. The world is full of noise, people barking opinions, venting frustrations, arguing for the sake of being right. But a Stoic walks differently. A Stoic knows that not every battle is worth fighting, that not every emotion is worth obeying, that not every silence is created equal. So if you've ever looked back and thought, I wish I had handled that better, you're in the right place. Because from here on out, it's not about pretending to be calm, it's about becoming someone who no longer needs to pretend. The illusion of control. You think you're in control, you think you're making choices, but most of the time you're not. You're reacting, fast, automatic, conditioned, like a script you didn't write, but keep performing every time something touches a nerve. And the worst part is, it feels like a choice. It feels like you meant to say what you said. It feels like you wanted to do what you did. But the truth is, you were already on autopilot before the moment even began. This is the illusion of control. The Stoics saw through it. They understood that what most people call temper isn't a conscious decision. It's a reflex, and a dangerous one. Because if you believe your reactions are deliberate, you'll never question them. You'll justify them. You'll defend them. You'll make your emotions sacred, untouchable, as if the mere fact that you felt something makes it true, as if your inner fire is always righteous. But Epictetus stripped that illusion bare when he said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things." Read that again. It's not the insult. It's the meaning you gave it. It's not the delay. It's the belief that you were disrespected. It's not what happened. It's how you interpreted what happened. That's where the anger is born. Not in the event, but in your lens. And that lens has been shaped by a lifetime of pain, pride, shame, and stories. Stories you didn't even choose. Maybe you were taught that to be strong, you had to be loud. Maybe you were taught that to be respected, you had to retaliate. Maybe you saw someone you love lose control and swore you'd never be like them, only to become them in smaller, quieter ways. The Stoics invite you to step back, to slow down the moment before the reaction, to see it, not from inside the storm, but from above it. They remind you that you can't control what enters your mind, but you can control what stays. You can't stop the first emotion, but you can choose the second one, the third, the response. So ask yourself, when you feel that rise in your chest, that urge to fire back, to shut down, to escape, who's actually in control? Is it you? Or is it the old version of you who still thinks being triggered is the same as being alive? That's the trap. You believe that reacting makes you real, that anger proves something, that you care, that you're right, that you won't be stepped on. But that's not strength, that's noise, that's confusion. That's the illusion of power without the reality of sovereignty. And sovereignty, real sovereignty, is quiet. It observes, it listens. It pauses long enough to ask the only question that matters. Is this reaction aligned with the person I want to be? That's not weakness, that's command. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't giving advice, he was offering liberation. Because until you break the loop, you'll keep returning to the same emotional battlefield, different people, same trigger, different story, same wound. And you'll keep calling it them, the people who disrespected you, betrayed you, misunderstood you, when the real battle was never about them. It was about the part of you that never learned how to choose. That part isn't evil, it isn't broken, it's just untrained. Like a horse that bolts at the first loud noise. Like a soldier that fires before thinking. Like a child that screams when it doesn't get its way. And if you never train it, it will keep running your life, one unconscious reaction at a time. The Stoic path is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about noticing the gap between stimulus and response and widening it. It's about feeling the emotion rise and instead of obeying it, observing it, dissecting it, asking it questions. And only then, if it's true, if it's useful, if it serves your higher self, you act. If not, you let it go, not out of fear, out of freedom. That's what makes a Stoic different. Not that they never feel rage, but that they don't serve it. They sit with it, they study it. And when the time comes, they either transform it into clarity or walk away in silence. So the next time you feel it building, the heat, the sting, the urge to react, stop. Ask yourself, is this mine? Or is this just a ghost from the past wearing a new face? The answer could change everything. The warrior without a sword. You were taught that strength looks like force, that power means action, that to defend yourself you must strike. But the Stoics taught something different. They believed in a kind of strength that doesn't flinch, doesn't retaliate, doesn't rush to prove anything. A power that isn't seen in the blow, but in the restraint. The one who could destroy but chooses not to. That is the warrior without a sword. There is nothing louder than self-control in a moment designed to make you lose it. Nothing more disarming than a calm response in the face of provocation. The world expects escalation. It feeds on it. One raised voice begets another. One insult invites 10 more. One disrespect triggers a storm of reaction. And then there's you, still, observant, present. Not because you're passive, but because you've chosen to fight the real battle, the one within. That's what makes it war. Not with others, but with yourself. The part of you that wants to win, to be seen, to prove you're not weak. That part doesn't die easy. It screams for attention. It whispers in your mind, don't let them get away with this. And if you're not careful, you'll obey. You'll fire back. You'll feel powerful for a moment. But later, always later, the truth catches up. You weren't in control. You are defending a version of yourself you haven't outgrown yet. Marcus Aurelius knew this when he said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who caused the injury. You don't have to mirror the disrespect to prove it didn't hurt you. In fact, the opposite is true. The moment you become the mirror, you lose the frame. You abandon your principles to chase validation. You start acting like the person who triggered you and call it strength. But real strength is doing nothing, not out of fear but out of discipline. You don't stay silent because you're weak. You stay silent because your values are louder than your ego. You walk away not because you've lost, but because the fight would cost your peace, and your peace is not for sale. This is the hardest kind of mastery, because it doesn't get applause. No one sees what you didn't say. No one praises you for the chaos you didn't unleash. The reward is internal. It's the quiet sense of alignment that follows. The inner nod that says, that was the old me's battle, I didn't need to fight it. And it's not about suppressing your voice. Stoicism doesn't teach silence as submission. It teaches you to speak with intention, not with impulse. It gives you the choice to respond in a way that serves you, not just satisfies you, because sometimes the words you want to say will ruin something you love, and once they're out, they don't return. Imagine a man who's been betrayed. He finds out. Everything in him screams to confront, to accuse, to retaliate, but he doesn't. He waits. He walks. He breathes. He feels the storm, but doesn't unleash it. He looks at himself and asks, what do I gain by becoming what hurt me? And in that moment, not the moment of revenge, but the moment of stillness, he wins. That's what we train for. Not to become emotionless, but to become unshakable. So that when the world pushes, we don't fall into the patterns of pain we were taught. We stand, we choose. We wield the sword only when necessary, and most of the time it isn't. You may think this kind of discipline makes you cold, but it doesn't. It makes you clear. It makes you deliberate. It makes you dangerous in a way that doesn't need to raise its voice to be felt. The person who can sit in discomfort, who can feel anger without becoming it, who can hold the line without drawing blood, that's the most powerful person in the room. So the next time you're tested, and you will be, don't rush to react. Don't let someone else's chaos dictate your character. Pause, hold, choose. Let the storm pass through without shaking your foundation, because the one who holds the sword and never uses it is always more feared than the one who swings it without thought. You don't owe the world your reaction. You owe yourself your peace, and there is no greater sign of power than keeping both. The mirror and the flame. Anger doesn't begin with the insult, it begins with the wound. A wound you often forgot you had until someone touches it. And then suddenly you're burning, but not because of what they said. You're burning because it mirrored something unresolved inside you. That's why the Stoics didn't teach you to control your temper with force. They taught you to observe the origin of the flame, the hidden place where it's lit long before it's seen. The trigger is not the problem. The problem is what the trigger reveals. That's what Seneca meant when he wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." You prove yourself by facing what ignites you, not avoiding it, not running from it, but meeting it head-on with clarity. Here's the truth most people never hear. Your anger is not always about now. Sometimes it's about a father who never listened, a teacher who humiliated you, a friend who abandoned you, and when someone makes a similar move, The past floods into the present. You call it disrespect, but what you really mean is not again, and so you react. Not to the person in front of you, but to everyone who came before them. That's the mirror. The moment reflects your history, not just your present. And if you don't catch it, you'll live your life punishing people who touched the wrong memory at the wrong time. That's what Stoic reflection gives you. Space. Space to pause and ask, why did this affect me so deeply? Not in a dismissive way. Not to invalidate the emotion, but to understand it, because understanding dissolves the illusion of urgency. You no longer feel trapped by the need to respond. You feel curious, aware, awake. The flame itself is not evil. Fire is energy. Fire is life. But uncontrolled fire, that's destruction. The Stoic learns to watch the fire, not throw it, to feel the heat without becoming consumed. That means tracking the thought pattern that leads to eruption. That means sitting with discomfort before it becomes aggression. That means asking, is this about them or about the part of me I haven't healed? Most people don't want that answer. They want blame. Blame is easy. Blame protects the ego. It puts the responsibility out there, on the world, on others, on circumstances. But the Stoic path doesn't give you that escape. It brings the mirror closer. It forces you to look, because what you refuse to examine will keep leading your life, quietly, brutally, unseen. There's a difference between reaction and revelation. Reaction is fast, automatic. It feels powerful, but it's blind. Revelation is slower. It feels weaker at first, but it sees. It exposes the story beneath the emotion. And the moment you see that story, you have a choice. Do I repeat it or do I rewrite it? A Stoic rewrites, not in a dramatic gesture, but in small inner decisions, like choosing not to carry old pain into a new interaction, like realizing that someone's words can only hurt you if you already believe what they're saying, like noticing that sometimes the fire was never meant for them, it was meant to wake you up. So here's the practice. The next time the flame rises, don't ask, why are they doing this to me? Ask instead, what part of me is reacting, and why does it still hurt? You'll be tempted to answer quickly. Don't. Sit with it. Let the silence teach you, because the truth won't scream, it will whisper, and only those who listen will hear it. That's how you spot the trigger before it sparks. You learn to read your own emotional weather. You notice when the clouds gather, when the pressure builds, when the past creeps in. And in that noticing, you reclaim your freedom. You are not the flame, you are the one who watches it. And once you understand this, truly understand, you'll stop trying to win every argument and start trying to understand every reaction. Not for them, for yourself. Because mastery doesn't come from defeating others. It comes from seeing yourself clearly and choosing not to ignite what no longer serves the fire you want to keep. The habit of holding the line. Most people prepare for their day by checking their phones, reading messages, rushing into noise. But the Stoic prepares differently. The Stoic begins with silence, with a pause, with a confrontation of what might go wrong, not to live in fear, but to walk into life already armored. This is not pessimism, this is preparation. This is how you hold the line before the test arrives, not after you've already broken. Emotional resilience is not built in the moment of anger. Here it's built in the hours before it, in the way you think, in what you rehearse, in what you tell yourself about the world and about your role in it. That's why Marcus Aurelius would remind himself every morning, "Today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly," not as a complaint, but as a shield. He expected the storm, so when it came, he didn't drown. Most people fall apart because they expected the world to be kind, fair, rational. And when it isn't, which it never fully is, when they collapse, their emotions run wild, they confuse unpredictability with betrayal. But the Stoic sees it differently. The Stoic says, "Let me meet reality where it is, not where I hoped it would be." That's the foundation of resilience, not needing life to cooperate to keep your inner structure upright. To hold the line means you draw it first, not in the heat of conflict, but in moments of quiet reflection. You define what matters. You set the standard for your response. You decide, these are the things that will not move me. And you revisit them often like a soldier sharpening a blade he hopes never to use. This is the ritual most overlook. Not meditation as escape, but preparation. Imagining what could test you, the disrespect, the rejection, the failure, and walking through it mentally until it loses its power, until it's no longer a surprise, until your first thought isn't panic, but presence. That's the practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. But don't let the Latin confuse you. This isn't philosophy for scholars, it's survival for the soul. It's how you stop being yanked around by events and become the kind of person the world can't shake. Because here's the truth, no one is resilient by accident. Composure is not a trait, it's a choice made over and over until it becomes reflex. The Stoic trains like an athlete. The arena is life. The opponent is the undisciplined mind. The cost of losing is peace. So how do you begin? You write it down. What could go wrong today? Who might push your buttons? What outcome might disappoint you? And then you answer, with calm, if this happens, I will not be ruled by it. Not because you're numb, but because you're clear. You don't owe the world your breakdown. You owe yourself your structure. This doesn't mean you won't feel. It means you won't obey the first feeling blindly. It means you'll observe, you'll breathe, you'll choose. You'll hold the line, not because it's easy, but because it's who you decided to be. And the more you do this, the stronger the line becomes. It's not a wall, it's not rigidity, it's presence. It's that quiet, grounded posture that tells the world, you can bring whatever storm you want, I won't be swept away. So tomorrow, before the noise begins, begin here. Ask yourself what might happen today that could disturb me. And then make a vow, not to avoid it, but to meet it with dignity, with clarity, with discipline. Because the world will always test you. The only question is whether you've trained for the moment or whether you'll break beneath its weight. Train now. Hold the line later. When silence speaks for you, there are moments when words fail. Not because you don't know what to say, but because everything you could say would only add noise to something that needs clarity. That's when silence becomes more than absence. It becomes presence. It becomes power. It becomes the one response that leaves the world wondering, not because you're hiding, but because you've chosen something stronger than reaction. In our culture, silence is often mistaken for weakness. People demand explanations, instant replies, proof that you care, that you're brave, that you won't be pushed around. But a Stoic doesn't flinch under that pressure. A Stoic knows that not every attack requires a counterattack. Not every challenge deserves an answer. Not every insult is worth your voice. When Marcus Aurelius was confronted with betrayal, he didn't always fight back. He observed, he journaled. He reminded himself that dignity was not about control over others, but control over self. That's the heart of this lesson. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. But don't confuse this with avoidance. Silence isn't the absence of emotion, it's the discipline of emotion. It's feeling everything, and still choosing what aligns with your deeper values. It's hearing the accusation, watching the misunderstanding, facing the discomfort, and resisting the urge to correct, explain, defend, or retaliate, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You know who you are. That's enough. When you speak from a triggered place, your words are laced with fear, with ego, with injury. You might win the argument, you might silence the other person, but inside you've handed over your peace, and no reaction, no matter how sharp, is worth that cost. Silence used properly creates space. Space for others to reflect, space for emotions to cool, space for truth to rise without force. The Stoics practiced this not as manipulation, but as a moral posture. They knew that power isn't measured by how loud you are, but by how little you need to prove. And there's another kind of silence too, the kind that breaks cycles. You've seen this before. A conversation starts to spiral. Voices rise, accusations fly. The moment is asking you to join the chaos, but then you pause. You don't escalate, you don't withdraw, you simply hold still. Not passive, not passive-aggressive, just still, present, solid, and something shifts. The pattern breaks. That's silence as disruption. That's silence as sovereignty. But it takes practice, because everything in you will scream to speak, to explain, to fix the misunderstanding, to restore your image. And sometimes, yes, a response is needed. But let it come after the emotion has settled. Let it be crafted, not cast. Let it be guided by principle, not pride. Ask yourself, if I say something now, who am I serving? The situation or my ego? That question alone can prevent 1,000 regrets. Because most words spoken in haste serve no one. They only deepen the wound. There's a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's full of intention, full of posture, full of a presence that doesn't need to shout to be felt. And when you master this silence, you stop reacting just to be heard, and start responding only when it adds value. That's the mark of emotional adulthood, the shift from noise to depth, from immediacy to meaning, from surface to source. So the next time you feel the pull, to snap, to correct, to argue, pause. Let the silence speak first. Let your stillness say what your words cannot, not because you're hiding, but because you're choosing something higher, because you're not just reacting, you're leading. And sometimes the loudest proof of strength is the sound of nothing at all. The return to self. You thought you were angry at them, at their words, their betrayal, their tone, their silence. You thought the heat you felt was about what they did. But with time, if you're honest, you begin to see it wasn't about them at all. Not really. The anger was a signal, a flare sent from somewhere deeper, and it pointed not at them, but back to you. That's the turning point most never reach. The moment when you realize that no one has ever truly made you angry. They've only revealed the places where you were already at war with yourself. And when that war is loud enough, it only takes a whisper from someone else to trigger an explosion. What you think is personal is often historical. A pattern, a pain you never named, a part of you that still believes something from the past is happening again. You feel disrespected, but it's not this one moment. It's the sum of years where you felt unseen. You feel criticized, but it's not the comment. It's the echo of a voice you tried to forget. You feel rejected, but the truth is you rejected yourself long ago, and now you're just watching that story replay through new people. The Stoics knew this. That's why they never taught blame. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He was pointing to this truth. Your peace was never theirs to give, and never theirs to take. The moment you accept that, everything changes. You stop chasing apologies. You stop demanding others fix what you haven't faced. You stop assigning them the role of villain in a play you wrote years before they ever arrived. And in that clarity, you come home. Not to safety, but to ownership. Because the deeper truth is this: you were angry at yourself for staying silent too long, for letting your boundaries dissolve, for abandoning your voice, for trying to be agreeable while your soul screamed for honesty. And when someone finally crossed the line, they didn't create the pain. They just activated the guilt you carried for drawing the line too late. But guilt isn't the enemy. Neither is the past. Both are teachers. If you listen, they'll show you the patterns. They'll name the hidden expectations you've placed on others, to understand you, to validate you, to rescue you. But no one can carry that weight. And when they fail to, you call it betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's reality. It's your cue to come back to yourself, to ask, what am I expecting from them that I haven't yet given to myself? That question hurts, but it also heals. You return to yourself not with shame, but with softness. You don't punish the part of you that reacted. You hold it. You ask it what it needed. You begin, slowly, to become the person your younger self never had. The one who listens. The one who sets boundaries without burning bridges. The one who speaks from truth, not trauma. And with that return, something beautiful happens. You no longer need to control how others behave to feel at peace. You no longer need every situation to go your way. You're no longer dragged by emotion, because emotion is no longer your master, it's your signal. You listen, you respond, and you stay whole. That's the Stoic path. Not emotionless, but emotionally sovereign. Not reactive, but rooted. Not distant, but deeply aware of where your responsibility begins and ends. So the next time the anger rises, ask yourself not, why did they do this to me? But what am I still holding that wants to be seen? And then go inward. Not to escape, but to remember. You were never angry at them. You were angry because part of you was still waiting for someone else to grant you the peace you always had the power to claim. This is your return. Not to who you were, but to who you're finally ready to become. You've made it this far not because you're trying to learn how to manage your anger, but because something in you is ready to be free from it. Not to suppress it, not to pretend you don't feel, but to meet that feeling with eyes wide open and not bow to it anymore. This is the quiet revolution, the kind that no one sees on the outside, but changes everything on the inside. You won't get applause for holding your tongue. No one will thank you for walking away from a fight you could have won, but your mind will know, your body will feel it. The peace that follows the storm you chose not to unleash, that's your reward. That's the Stoic way. Not cold, not detached, but deliberate. Still. Awake. You are not your reaction. You are not your triggers. You are the space before the reaction. You are the awareness beneath the anger. You are the decision that comes after the urge. And from this place, you stop being someone who fights to be heard and become someone who no longer needs the noise. From here, your presence changes the room. You say less, but it means more. You act less, but it hits deeper. Because your silence is no longer hesitation. It's mastery, so pause, breathe. Feel the change already happening in you. That shift from reacting to choosing is the start of something real, something grounded, something unshakable. And now if this spoke to you, if something inside you shifted even slightly, don't just think about it. Anchor it, materialize it. Right now in the comments, write one sentence, one truth you're ready to live by, one decision you're choosing from now on. A sentence like, I own my temper, it no longer owns me. I choose clarity over chaos. I will respond with stillness, not ego. Put it in writing, not for me, for you, to make the change real, to mark this moment. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. This isn't just a channel. It's a place where thought becomes reflection, and reflection becomes transformation. The kind that happens in silence, the kind that stays with you long after the video ends. This was never about becoming perfect. It was about remembering that you are not here to be ruled by what rises in you, but to rule it with wisdom, with presence, and with peace. You're not done. You've just begun.